Okay, look at these three scenarios. You're trying to address to the same person, isn't it? But you have used different salutations. You can choose to address Professor Mkandawira as Dear Mr. President, because he's the president of the university. Right? But you can also choose to say, Dear Professor Mkandawira. Right? Then you can also say, Dear Francis. That's his name, isn't it? Huh? I don't know. But the question is, at what level would we use this or this or this? This is where the issues of formal or informal comes in. Of course, it goes beyond that. Even the language that you are going to use, right, could determine the formal or informality of your communication. It's like how we interact ourselves, right? I come to you and say, Chisom, go. Right? Grace, go. That's an informal kind of communication, isn't it? But is it always that you would say go to each and every person? It all depends on a number of things, isn't it? Your relationship, right? The type of chat that you want to undertake. Okay? I know a lot of you guys with your grannies, if you have grannies, grandma, you kind of disregard all the formalities and try to treat one another as peers, So the informal kind of communication is, but if you meet somebody, for example, Abu Church one, right? Would you greet Abu Church one? Abu, go. Would you do that? Huh? So this is what we are trying to say when you talk of being formal or informal. There are cultures in institutions, right? There are some rules and regulations that you need to follow. So everything we are talking about here, the memos, the emails, all these, other than the standard way of doing it, each and every institution will have their own formats of communication. So you go by that format, right? And the format will include the language, the words that you use, all right? The font size, the font type, the spacing, whether you indent or not, and so on and so forth. Okay? These would highlight what the standard practice, right? It's an in-house kind of style, where a university like this one will have its own style of writing these things. But this does not mean that we violate the basic standards of writing these things. So as I said about the email, the memos too have got the basic way of presenting them. The basic standard of presenting the email. That's why I was in the process of discussing the formats of a memo, right? So, when people have the same mailing address, it is necessary to use anything, rather unnecessary to use anything more than a departmental designation. Okay? Include addresses below the names if the addresses are different, such as different internal post offices, box numbers. Of course, if you are using digital or printed letterhead, there's need to include your address below your name. So you will have a situation like when I was explaining about the emails, where if the recipients are many, you put all their addresses on to, right? If you want others to just to have a copy, right? Then you also go under the C and put their address as a copy, right? This is similar with memos, right? You can write a memo with a message and you want to send that to as many recipients as possible. You too say that you have seen a memo. I want you guys to share with me how a memo looks like. Okay? So, how does a memo looks like? This is a page, a blank one. Title. Where? Where do you put the title? Yeah.
In the middle.
In the middle.
The top in the middle.
Here.
Yes.
Title. So for example, give me an example of the title. Okay, what else? So you write, where do you put it? Here, here, or here? To the left.
Where it's coming from?
From where do I put from?
Under
Okay.
the date.
Date, here.
The subject.
Subject, here.
Then you skip the line.
You skip a line.
Then you the body. The body.
The body. What else?
Conclusion.
Somebody says conclusion. Okay? That's how you guys visualize how a memo will look like. Alright? Not too far from the truth. So indeed, a memo would, so usually here would be a memo, isn't it? Okay? There are times when you will have a memo on a letterhead. Okay? By letterhead, not necessarily a letterhead for a letter, but you already have an address, okay, of the institution. But usually that is not necessary because, as I said, memos are meant to communicate internally. So people already have those details. Okay? But then earlier on, I read something where you want to send the memo to a number of recipients. Right? So all you need to do is, it will be to, for example, Director of Finance. Okay? If Director of Finance has got same address with the next recipient, then, or the rest of the recipients, then you don't need to put their addresses. Okay? But the recipient address are different. Then you can Director of Finance, Nje, it's in here. Okay? Director of Admin, Ministry of Education, for example. So this one will be a different. Okay? PS, Agriculture, right? So you have all that list. This can go on and cover the entire page. It's simply a list of those who are supposed to receive that particular memo or that message. So you can have as many of these as possible. Okay? From, obviously, this is where the message is coming from. Okay? So it will be from Kisomo Chanza. But usually, you would put your position as well. Okay? So you are Director, Corporate Affairs. So the message is coming from Director, Corporate Affairs to the rest of the directors. Date is the date where that information, when that information is being shared. The subject, you know what the subject is, right? So most of these things are similar to what an email does, okay? There are times when instead of subject, you see RE. Have you seen that? What does that stand for? Huh? Huh? Reason. Somebody says reason. What do others say? Request. What do you think? You don't know. Okay? So simply means the message is regarding church. Right? It's the same thing as the subject. You would ask me, sir, can we meet this afternoon? My immediate question would be, regarding what? All I'm trying to ask is, what is the what? Subject matter that you want us to discuss. So you say we should meet regarding. Okay? So as a replacement of subject, you see that in other communication they'll simply put RE. It's the same subject. Okay? Here it means regarding. Unfortunately, there is no we can't be. Can you guys see from there? Hmm? A memo format. Can we see that? So here is a memo, a typical memo format where we have a clear page where at the very top is a printed memo heading. This usually will take place, as I explained earlier on, when a pre-printed memo heading is used in an organization. So at an institution like the University of Lilongwe, you could have a pre-printed heading. Okay? So there is internal memorandum. Okay? Just as we did there, we simply wrote memo, some would say internal memorandum. So as you rightly said, there is from, the date, and the subject. So to means the recipient, from means the originator of that message, date is the day the memo will be sent, and subject is to guide the recipient about the content of the memo. So here they are giving an example of a memo where you are talking about a planning conference for 2024 annual report. Okay? So what does the memo say? Simple, straightforward, to the point. Okay? Our first planning session for 2024 annual report will be conducted at 2 p.m. on September 14 in the conference room. Please be prepared to discuss the following, and you share the agenda, right? Annual report, production schedule, photography, writing responsibilities. Then, no signature needed. Why? Some memos are initiated by the sender beside the name in the form. But the closing and signature used in the business letter are not necessary. Up there, you have already indicated where the memo is coming from. So it may not be necessary to write again your name. All right? Simple, isn't it? Formats for memos vary from organization to organization. I say that. But this one is typical. Memos are used when those addressed don't have email, and when posting on bulletin boards is a good way to communicate. For example, with a group of employees who don't have computers in their offices. Right? Any question on this one? Do we now understand what a memo is? Can we write can we originate a memo?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
I told you, I gave you an example of my own office. As I'm here, already the interns are busy writing these things. Letters, memos, emails. These things are what keep busy in offices. Interesting. They look simple, we know them, we have heard about them. Okay? I know you start mastering them with time. Okay? I appreciate your mail. You just demonstrated that you do these things, right? And let me encourage the two of you. Chisomo, please activate your email. Let's try to communicate through emails. Okay? Okay? Okay. Just as I said with the emails, where there was a CC, right? Similarly, when it comes to memos also, you could want a copy, somebody to get a copy of your communication. Okay? These are people who are not necessarily directly involved in whatever subject matter is, right? But for some reasons, they need to be appraised for their information about that communication. Okay? So you simply copy them. We are used to the CC, but as I said, we no longer have the carbons. So it's simply one C, standing for a copy. Okay? So the question is, where do you put a copy in the memo? Huh?
Below 2.
Below 2. So, where? Here. Copy.
No, just under 2.
Huh? Here.
Yes.
So it will be copy.
CC.
Okay? Then you put.
Sir.
Yes.
Isn't it supposed to be under the subject?
What?
Isn't it supposed to be under the subject?
The copy? Why? Yeah, there could be a reason. I'm not sure. Under the subject? Not necessarily, but other than where she said, it could be at the very end, at the bottom. Okay? Maybe let's see what the book says. So the book says, the copy can go below the topic of the memo. Is this what you said? So we have subject here, then we put CC. That's what you're saying. Okay? And that's interestingly how exactly the book says. Let's go through it. So you can use the C, either lowercase or capital. Doesn't make any difference. And that C can go below the topic of the memo, and that's what uh, uh, Grace is saying. Teresa, rather. You are Teresa. You are Teresa.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Teresa.
Teresa. Yes.
Teresa. Okay. Okay. So you can put the C below the topic of the memo or at the end of the body of the memo. So two places. Okay? If it's only one name, you may find it easier to put the C for the Kobe, Kisomo, and the title below the topic. If a number of people are getting the message, but only for their information, put the names at the end of the body of the memo. You see the condition here. The book says there are two positions that you can put a copy. One is below the subject, and two is at the very end of the memo. But there's a condition, right? If there's only one person requiring the copy, then you can put it below the subject. But if there are a number of people, 5, 6, 10, requiring a copy for their information, then it is encouraged to put at the very end. Okay? Just like I say on the email, when you are sending the memo to a number of people, all of whom are supposed to act on your email, or rather on the memo, you need to list them all in the do. So you want all your recipients to act on the message, right? Then everybody should go under do. Let me also list your winner yes for their action. Okay? You skip spaces between each, but including their addresses. I think Jimmy will not follow that, right? So you skip space between each, but include their addresses and or their phone and fax numbers. There is a practical reason for using the fax number last. Well, we no longer have faxes, do we? Do you guys even know what a fax is? You know the faxes, then it was a very, very interesting discovery in those good old days. Unfortunately for me too, the time I started knowing things, the faxes were now being eliminated. That's when now the internet was coming in. I just have the knowledge of how faxes worked, right? So you could type some message, then you could take that paper, and put it into the fax machine, right? So you needed to alert the recipient that you are sending a fax, okay? So the fax, the paper will be going through the system, the equipment. At the same time, it will be printing on a paper at the receiving end. That's how a fax worked. Okay? So you could write a letter and fax it. It was the easiest. So fax was was kind of a hybrid, okay, between a letter and an email at the same time. But you could write a letter first, okay? But how to send it, instead of putting it in an envelope, buy a stamp, go to the post office, send it. That would have taken weeks, months before the receiver gets it. But this time around, you don't have emails. These days, you simply scan and take it as an attachment, right? In fact, we did not go on the emails, okay? There's also a provision for attachments, right? Where you can attach whether your assignments, pictures, videos, right? So the message is simple, but for details, you make an attachment, okay? This is also applicable with memos, right? So with memos, you send your message straight to the point. If there's a need for further information, then you put an attachment to the memo. So if it's a document, you attach the document. So that once you're putting them in an envelope, they go as a package. Okay? So a fax, then, that's how it used to work. So what was happening was, as you were sending a fax, it was encouraged to put a phone number. Because first you needed to communicate through a phone. Say, look, I'm sending a fax. Okay? I'm sending a fax. So the recipient would go and get ready to receive that fax. So you could hear a tone, right? So the fax would start coming in slowly. So you see the message and say, this is the fax that has been. So you read through it. You respond on a paper. Then if you want to send a fax back, you should also use a send portion. You call them, I'm sending a fax, can you check? So they will go and wait for it to come out. That's how the fax used to work. But with the coming of the emails, we no longer need those faxes. Because emails are instant. You write, if there's something to attach, you simply attach the letter, it goes instantly. Right? So, here they're talking of some faxes, maybe just for your interest. They're saying there's a practical reason for using the fax number last. So, on the memo, too, you put their faxes or phone numbers. Okay? Some fax operators only look at the last number when they get ready. Maybe this may not be important because we no longer have these things. But here they are giving a typical example of the memo format, where the memo is going to a number of recipients. These are people who are supposed to take action on the memo, right? So they are putting their name, their position, their postal address, their phone number, and the fax number. And there's a second person, the same, right? Then there's the name, the position or destination, the post office box, the phone number, and the fax. And there's a date. The RE is the same, planning conference for 2024 annual report. Under it is a copy. A copy goes to Jane Bene, and her position is Chief Financial Officer. In short, CFO. Oh, is it already 10? Okay. Yeah, but at least we have double A, right? So can I have questions before we stop?
So the school doesn't know how to write memos.
What?
The school doesn't know how to write memos.
Why?
Because they put the CC under the two.
Under the
Their
what?
memos.
Ah, okay. Okay. I said earlier on that each institution has its own in-house style. All right? So it's not that they don't know how to write, but they chose that way of doing a memo. Okay? That's the in-house style of the institution. If you go to other institutions, it will be a different thing altogether. But all I was trying to do is to share the basic standards when it comes to a memo. Some of these things are so minor, all right? So you could have a standard, but institutions or people choose to have their own way of doing it, and it's acceptable, right? So the school do know how to write memos. Anything else? Ask me, Madam Grende. Just so much ask questions. You don't have. Okay. In that case, when do we meet again? Next week? Right? Can we, for the last time, next week meet twice?
Okay, so, but on Wednesday, can we meet in the morning?
Wednesday, the next okay, can somebody switch this off?